Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Hello and welcome back to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm the therapist, Tess Brigham.
And I'm the attorney, Brooke Brigham.
So today we are talking about Christine Brown's interview with Heather McDonald on her podcast, Juicy Scoop. So now that the season has wrapped up, there are, as if you're a fan of Sister Wives, you probably know this, that they are releasing lots of different episodes between now and Christine's wedding special. So we are going to be checking those out, seeing if they're worthwhile covering, and we will cover those. But we just thought that this might be, it was a really good interview and it was juicy. So we thought that maybe this would be a great topic to talk about. So, if you haven't already, if you're not a fan of Juicy Scoop, you might want to go listen to the episode.
Yeah. I don't know First of all, I don't know why you wouldn't be a fan of Juicy Scoop. We are big fans of Juicy Scoop. We've seen
I love
Heather
Juicy
McDonald
Scoop
live, and yes, and so it was kind of a surprise. It popped up. I think the night before I saw, she put on Instagram or something that she was going to be interviewing Christine the next day. And I was like, what? And so I was so excited. I got up the next morning and I was like, 7 a.m. I'm listening to this interview, and it was really good. Although I have to say that one of the first questions, I was a little bit worried because one of the first questions that Heather asked her was, did you come from polygamy? And I was like, oh no. Oh no. But that was the only, I don't know why she didn't know that. And Christine says, oh yes, and she starts talking about her, her upbringing. But it was fine. But that really worried me when she said that.
Yes.
Oh dear.
I was a little nervous too, because she was talking about, how she's like, oh, I didn't watch the show until you were in Vegas. And it's like, well, they're in Vegas pretty quickly. Like that's it's essentially season 3.
Season 2.
Season 2 is what they leave during season 2.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Or
don't they leave in season 2?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was season 2.
Yeah, they leave in season 2. But yeah, when they're in Vegas.
Yeah.
But so Heather's not the biggest Sister Wife fan, but you don't need to be. And listen, there's lots of things that I don't know. So, but yeah, I remember I was a little nervous too, because I was like, oh my God, is she going to ask her all the same questions that everybody already knows? But she answered a question about sex. And that is the only time we can get there. But like no one has ever talked about their intimate life ever.
Oh yeah. She was very forthcoming. Christine was very forthcoming. And I think that because at this point, Christine and the other wives have all seen season 18. And these specials that are coming out in the next couple days from TLC, where it's sort of like that, all of them commenting on season 18. It's from the clips I've seen, it's very raw. Like gloves are off. because, these women have watched Cody talk all this shit about them. And now they're just like, you know what? I don't even care anymore. I'm going to say what I want to say. It's all coming out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's all being revealed. Yay. This is going to make for a really good season 19 and 20. Well, if Brooke, Cody you lead us because you. Oh, yeah. Well, no. Cody doesn't have a choice because Cody's going to go back to work. Cody does not want to work, which she addressed that too. This man does not want to have to put on clothes and go to a job anymore. So trust me, he's going to do this for as long as he can. Yeah. So,
okay.
Well, you lead us because you took tons of notes and all that good stuff.
Okay. So basically, Christine talks about how her mom was a first wife, and she said, yes, I grew up in polygamy. She didn't, tell her that, oh yeah, my grandfather started this sect, this AUB or whatever. But she said her mom was the first wife, and that when she was 5, her father took a second wife, and she loved that woman, considered her mother. But when Christine was 19, her mother, Annie, she left the church and left her family. Mm-hmm. And it was really a big shock. And her mom was not close to the second wife, and I think was pretty miserable in the whole experience. Because I remember seeing a clip about this on YouTube or something. Her mom was part of a documentary that somebody made, not a big documentary, but a small one about, polygamy and, people who've left polygamy. And the way that Christine's mom talked about it was, she was just very miserable. She felt, I kind of feel like she was a feminist, who somehow got caught up in this lifestyle and knew that it wasn't right. And, eventually just couldn't take it anymore. And she left. So then she talks about how she wanted to be a third wife because she thought, a first wife is too much work and the second wife is a wedge. But this is contradictory. This will come later in the interview. Contradictory to what she says when she starts talking about how even before Robin came along, they were pursuing a few women to be a fourth wife. Mm-hmm. And it didn't seem to bother her then. But then when Robin came along, it seemed to really bother her. So I thought that was interesting because she'd been talking through the whole television show about how she wanted to be the third wife and the last wife.
Yes. Well, but I think that's what she wanted, but I don't think she had much of a choice. I mean, I think Cody decides things and then, she has to kind of just do them, right? One of the things that she mentioned was that Cody was courting another woman, but this was during the time where he and Mary were together. But this was before Janelle. She did mention that there was someone else that he got very close to, engaged to. She mentioned that one. But did she, I guess I missed that she had mentioned that there were some other people. But they talk about that in the book. They do, that they were sort of scouting around, looking around.
Yeah, but it was never this specific. Yeah, in the book, they talked about a woman who I don't think was 18 yet. And that's what they were waiting for her to turn 18. He was only married to Mary at the time. Now, the thing is, Christine knew Cody for about 3 or 3.5 years before she married him. And so she was just kind of hanging out. She was right out of high school. He was only married to Mary. And that's when, and I'm sure sounds to me like she really had a crush on him. She thought he was just the greatest guy ever. But I don't think he was interested in her. And that's when that, the whole nacho thing and all that was in that time period. And in the book, they talked about how in that time period, Cody and Mary were supposed to marry this other woman. They said they were waiting for her to turn 18. And then at the last minute, it was called off. And Christine said that she was glad because she didn't like that woman. And that she wouldn't have wanted to be part of Cody's family if he had married her. So Christine was already having fantasies about being part of Cody's family, but Cody wasn't having the same fantasies about her.
Yeah.
So
she mentions
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. She mentions in the interview about how it wasn't until she read the book that they all wrote together that she didn't know that that's how Cody felt about her. I mean, can you imagine? It was just, I mean, she kind of laughs about it, but I mean, it's heartbreaking. It's really like, can you imagine like opening up that book and being like, wait, what? It's just,
I know.
And again, I don't know, this is this whole thing about like truth and how much of the truth do you really need to say? You know, I understand with reality TV, it's about putting yourself out there and opening things up. But we've had reality TV long enough now to see that the long-term outcome is not good for people. It's not good for people to confront each other and be brutally honest and then comment on things and then watch those comments back. And I just, the whole thing, you know, I don't know. There's just a part of me that wonders like, what? I understand you want to be honest in this book, Cody, but is that really, did you need to tell anybody that? Like, that just shows, I don't know what you would call it, but it shows a side of Cody who he doesn't really care about other people's feelings. Like, how could you possibly say that? Like, he's just saying it for content and saying it. I don't know why he said it, but it was so cruel. And she said that they had a lot of discussions about that comment, you know, after that. But so I think his reaction to that relationship breaking up was to marry Janelle. And because Janelle had been hanging around for 2-3 years as well, you know, she and Cody were friends. Like, Mary and Cody rented a house from her. You know, she was in their lives. And again, I think that Janelle also had a crush on Cody. And and then I also think about the dynamic at this time. Janelle is married to Cody's brother. So how does that all play into it? Did she leave? No, Mary's brother.
Did she leave?
Mary's brother.
Sorry. Did she
Mary's
leave
brother.
Mary's? Did she leave Mary's brother to be with Cody? You know, was that the reason?
Well, that's,
you know, she was at Mary's wedding.
Yeah. Well, they've never, I mean, the Janelle being married before, they've never addressed. Because remember, in the tell-all, when Cody said, when Robin came in as a divorced woman, he vetted her, you know, hard and made sure that, you know, she wasn't leaving a good guy. And I was like, so did you do that for Janelle? Because Janelle also was divorced. You know, it's just so weird. So it's like, just, making up rules as we go along.
So does that mean that Mary's brother was a bad guy and Janelle was justified in leaving him because he was a bad guy? But it's a crock of shit. So, and Janelle just talks about how, you know, he was the best guy she knew. Anyway, Christine says her mom knew Cody and she did not want Christine to marry Cody, but she didn't say anything. And she didn't say anything until after Christine actually left Cody. And she did not want Christine to live plural marriage because she felt that it didn't honor women, you know, which was why she left, obviously. But gosh, Annie, it would have been okay to say something, I think.
But I think this one is so hard. I think this is so hard because people always, they'll say to you, oh, I want you to be honest with me. I want you to tell me if you don't like this person. I want you to, you know, intervene in these ways. And then, but when it really comes down to it, people don't want to hear these things. You know, I think that it would have fallen on deaf ears and I think that must have been, I was trying to think about what it was like for Annie in that moment of knowing like, oh no, my child is going to go down this same road. And I can kind of see, I mean, that's the hardest part about being a parent is you don't, you know, your kids need to fail and make their own choices and fall down. But it's really hard as a parent to be like, oh gosh, I don't think this is going to work. Or, oh, you know,
and this is that's
really hard.
That's a big one. So, but luckily, Christine and Annie, managed to keep their, I get, the relationship is good now, and also Christine is still close to her, other mom, her second, the second wife. And she said that she came to her wedding and, I guess we'll see her in the wedding special. But, so then Heather and Christine were both sort of laughing about that scene where Cody says, we think he's actually going to take responsibility for everything.
Yes.
He says, well, I didn't take responsibility. It's my fault because I married a woman I didn't love. And then they're laughing about it. And Christine's just like, yeah, why can't he just admit that he used to love me? It's like, he can't bring himself to admit that. So
because he can't be wrong. I mean, that's the problem is if he admits that he once loved her and then he fell in love with Robin, and Christine does say something about this, that essentially, this whole time they've been living this, basically a lie, in the shadows. And I don't know, the whole thing, it's just, Cody, what Cody doesn't understand is because Cody's so desperate for approval, even though he'll never admit it, he's so desperate for approval. But you know what, Cody, if you just own this stuff and said that you did love them, but you fell out of love, or once you met Robin, it was a different kind of love or whatever it is. If you own this stuff, people will respect you a lot more. And that's the part about him that drives me crazy is just like, you are your worst enemy. You really are.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
Yeah. So then Christine confirms that before Robin came into the family, Cody was equal with his time. And once Robin came into the family, that all changed. She sort of like sidelined into how she talked. And this was in the book. Christine was, the way that this show came about, Christine was involved in a group that was sort of a polygamy PR type of group, trying to present polygamy positively to the outside world. And then the producer, Tim Gibbons, contacted Christine because she was the contact person for this group. And then Christine, of course, referred him to Cody. And, I think that the producer originally wanted to do a documentary, but they felt that was too dangerous. They talked about, Heather asked her, if she watched much reality TV. She said, not really. They watched American Idol, but that they were just like Christine, especially growing up in that polygamy in the AUB. She said that they were taught that the outside world was scary and that, her dad would go to jail if anyone found out that they were polygamist. So, I'm kind of shocked that they actually took the risk of doing this show, but it was Cody was in charge. So I'm sure he was just like, we have to do this. And we still didn't get a straight answer about the timing of Robin coming into the family and the show. That's still a little murky, that whole timeline of,
but I think the sense I get, because this was also talked about in the book, right? The sense I get is, because these things don't happen that quickly. The sense I get is I think he was probably, Cody was having phone calls with these people and they're all kind of in this headspace. And they also probably were like, we don't know if this is going to go. We don't know if it's going to get picked up by any network. We don't know if, what it's going to be like. So it sounds a little bit like it was all happening at the same time, because she did say that they did tell Robin ahead of time, like, hey, FYI, we're about to, we've been approached about a reality show. And so this might be part of this. So I really do think it all happened at the same time. And the courting process is so goddamn fast in those families that, that it wasn't this big, long thing. And that's why Cody and Robin had to wait so long to get married, because they had to wait for production. They had to wait to get started.
Yeah. So I guess maybe it was just a coincidence. But so then she started talking about how, even when they were in Las Vegas, because Heather's saying, well, gosh, I just don't understand, the Las Vegas, the cul-de-sac, that seemed like such an ideal setup. And why did you guys leave? And, why did you go to Flagstaff? And literally Christine says, I still don't really know why we went.
Mm-hmm.
She said that in Las Vegas, she said that they were already broken. They were already living these very separate lives. And then Cody started saying stuff about how Las Vegas wasn't safe for the kids, because I think this was around the time of that horrible shooting in Las Vegas at the outdoor concert where like 50 people were killed. And, I don't know, it kind of seems like she didn't really question it too much. She was just sort of like, well, because Cody had decided it was, and she's like, well, I guess we're going. And then she tried to reframe it, because Christine is such a positive person. She tried to reframe it and say, well, Coyote Pass, this whole fantasy about, building on Coyote Pass and living, it was going to be a restart for them to be together and be one family again.
Yeah. And that, her saying that, I think gives you such a glimpse into what this marriage has been like for Christine since Robin came into the family. I can imagine for her, it must have felt like this constant roller coaster of, this isn't working, this isn't good, maybe I should go, right? Like, it sounds like she was, because it sounds like she had been thinking somewhere in the back of her mind about leaving for many, many years, right? So it sounds like every year was a little bit of like, maybe we'll make this work. And then these things would come about like Flagstaff and be like, okay, well, maybe this is the restart we need. Maybe this is it. And then like putting all your eggs in that basket and, okay, this is going to be great. And we're going to get this reset, and then getting there and then seeing that, oh crap, it's the exact same thing. And it's even worse because we're even more disjointed because we live in all these different rentals all over the city. Right. I mean, it just gave me like this glimpse of what life it must have been like for her. Just the constant hoping that something better would come, like it would get better.
Well, she's such an optimist, and she said for the first 15 years of their marriage, her needs were met. He was fair with his time. Robin came into the family. Everything changed. It was all about Robin. But she thought that would decrease over time, because in the beginning it was like, okay, yeah, well, Robin has to act, and her kids have to acclimate into the family. And then they had Saul, and then, she had a baby and she needed help. And she kept thinking, oh, it'll get better. It'll get better. Never ever got better. And then one interesting thing she said was that, she thought of herself as, first, she was a mom to 18 kids, first and foremost. And she felt that they were a family, and Robin saw them as couples. Like Robin said, oh, well, Cody and I are a couple, and you and Cody are a couple. And Christine said, no, we're a family. We're not couples. So that kind of is some insight into the fact that from the beginning, Robin didn't really understand this plural marriage thing or how it worked, because she had never lived it before. And then, so I love this. She says, Cody was at her house every fourth night. Then when he stopped going to Mary's house, it was every third night. So at some point, Cody completely stopped going to Mary's house at all. I think that was in Las Vegas, where she said that she needed some space or something. And he took that as, okay, well, I'm never going to spend the night with you again. But he was only there at night. He literally would come after 6:00, and they would see his car parked at Robin's house all day in the cul-de-sac. So they knew where he was. And even on a Saturday, he couldn't come around during the day. He wasn't working. Obviously, he still came over at 6:00. And so that means that Janelle was having the same experience. And that's why her kids are so angry, is because they were in their teenage years, young adult years, when all this was happening, where they could see their dad's car parked across the street at Robin's house
Mhm.
all goddamn day. And they never see him unless it's like 6 o'clock. He comes over to eat and goes to bed. Yeah, they're bitter. That's why Gabe
Yeah.
and Garrison and
Yeah.
all these guys, Hunter, whoever, they're bitter and they have every right to be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, and it sounds just, in some ways, I think, I don't know, myself and a lot of the viewers always saw Vegas as being this, oh, this is the best situation. This is great. Everything's wonderful. But it sounds like in some ways it was just there right in your face. Like, we can't ignore this anymore. And yeah, I mean, just and the way in which she made it sound, it was almost like this god awful obligation, almost like a grandkid having to come and like give grandma a peck on the cheek kind of thing. Like, okay, finally I have to leave Robin and I'm going to go to Christine's, and like dragging himself there. So that energy must have been just every time like, oh, we're so happy to see you. And he must have just felt like, I don't want to be here. And that is awful because you also had kids. You had 6 kids there too. Like, what, huh? That's the part. It's the, and we'll see, don't mess with a woman's children, because that's always everybody's, that's their breaking point.
That's the end.
So
that's the end. Yeah. And she said when they moved to Flagstaff, she was waiting again. She was waiting for something to change, waiting for all these years, thinking, okay, well, maybe he'll start doing stuff with us as a family. Maybe we'll start traveling as a family. But like 6 months go by, a year goes by. It's not happening. So she said she just started doing things without him. She started taking trips with her kids. They'd go kayaking and hiking just without him. And she realized he is never going to be with us. He is just always going to be with Robin. Now, it seems as though she was willing to accept that for the sake of her children. She's like, okay, well, I can deal with that. I guess our romantic relationship was over. But yeah, once he started fucking with the kids, then she was like, oh, wait a minute. And yeah, and then when the whole thing about the one house came up, she was like, oh, absolutely not. I would be trapped. Cody would never come to her part of the house, maybe to come over to sleep, maybe. And they would probably see less of him, because remember how he wanted to have his own section of the house? And she thought, well, we're probably going to have to go there to visit him. Like, he's not going to come to my part of the house to be with me. And he would just be with Robin in her part of the house.
Yeah. And that's even, I mean, it was so interesting. She was like, I would just be like a stopover, and how, right. And I would think that if they were all in one house, I don't even think he would come at 6. He maybe would eat with Robin and then be like, well, okay, under obligation, I got to wander over here and sleep next to her. And it just sounds more and more miserable, the more you think about it, right? Like, just, yeah.
Yeah. No. And her kids, half her kids were already, I think half or more were grown out of the house, and they all told her, don't do it. Don't do it. And then she mentioned that even in Lehigh, when they lived in one house, it was not this idyllic situation. First of all, Christine was in the basement, as we all know. And she said the house was crowded and it was very busy, and Cody was all over the place, going from one place to the next. And she said she didn't even feel like a wife, they didn't, because he wasn't dedicating time with her and her kids. He was just like, oh, I got to go up and talk to Janelle, or, oh, I got to do this. I'll be back, And so she also talked about how, so that she vaguely knew in Flagstaff for sure that she wanted to leave, but she wanted to get her share of whatever, she wanted to get her share of some sort of property. She said when they were, talking about, okay, who's going to live on this lot in Coyote Pass, they had decided. And then I guess Cody told Christine, no, you can't have that lot. You have to take this other lot. And she just realized that, like, oh my God, like I can't be financially tied to these people. because I'm never going to get what's mine. Kind of like the exact situation Janelle finds herself in right now. Christine actually knew ahead of time, which is ironic, again, because we always think Janelle is some sort of financial wizard, and she's not. And, you know, she was just like, no, I can't do this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's just good on her. I mean, Christine's a lot smarter than people give her credit for.
Well, I think that Christine, you know, people get annoyed with her and, you know, the princess and Pollyanna, you know, all this other kind of stuff. But she is obviously very in touch with her feelings. Like she really understands, you know, she doesn't just brush things off. And one thing with Janelle is I don't know Janelle. So like, I don't know what's going on in her head, but I do think that Janelle is someone who does not linger too much on like, how do I feel about this? You know, what's going on with me? And I think that, I think Christine's always been very much in touch with how she feels and how this has been making her feel, and really vocal, which unfortunately, I think this is why she's gotten so much crap from Cody with the Robin thing. Because Christine was really saying things that I think Mary and Janelle felt too. And didn't like, you know, as well. But she was the one vocalizing it, you know, making it happen. Right. And, you know, anyway, I know a lot of people get annoyed with her. I really like Christine. And I think the thing is that she is a very different person than Janelle. And so we're seeing in these very different ways, two different people handling the same situation. So,
yeah. And
anyway.
So she said that she said basically Isabel's surgery was the last straw because Cody said, I can't leave my family for that long. And she said that Isabel told her, I thought we were a family. You know, what am I? Yeah. And that was it. She snapped. She's like, I can't be married to a guy who doesn't think that we're a family. And they were gone a total of 3.5 weeks. And he didn't have to come for the entire time. He could have just come for, you know, like right before the surgery and stayed for a little bit. I mean, he could have come for a week, like at the critical time when she was, you know, having the surgery and right after the surgery.
Yeah. But I think that it's very telling that it's like, well, no, I have to stay with my family. It's almost like somewhere, like the minute Cody realized, oh my God, I am so in love with Robin. I'm, you know, deeply in love with her. It was like he became this so tunnel vision. And this is what all these other kids are feeling and thinking, which is, the minute this woman showed up with her kids, you just dumped all of us. Like we're nothing. And that's, I mean, that is the most telling comment for him to say, and to say it to their faces with seriously and without television, even realizing what he did. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like he doesn't even know what he's saying. He doesn't even know what he's saying. It doesn't even register with him when, yeah. And so Christine says he's not only a bad husband, he's a bad dad, and you can't protect your child from the truth. Ooh, that's a deep cut, Christine.
Yes.
That is a deep cut. So then this was I think my favorite question. Heather says, what does Cody do when he's not filming the show? And Christine says, I don't know. I have no idea. He's not at my house. He runs amok. He's very disorganized. Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
She doesn't even know what he does all day. Nobody knows.
Yeah. I think.
Well, we
Cody
do know he's over at Robin's.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think Cody and Robin, both of them, I think they're both disorganized. I think they're both a little chaotic with this stuff. I think Cody has ADD that has not been diagnosed. But I think that I think that they are two people who probably feel like they are so busy all the time, but they do nothing. You know those people? Like we all know at least one where, you know, they're just like, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And you're like, what are you doing? Like, you know, the rest of us are getting 90 things done a day and not having a problem with it. But yeah, I think I always say, I think he moves logs from one end of Coyote Pass to the next. I mean, I don't think, you know, and I think he probably thinks there's a reason for it.
Yeah, I think he just drives around. I think he just he probably has a place he goes every day for breakfast or lunch and, just shoots the shit with people, like goes here, goes there. He's the kind of person who doesn't sit still. Yeah. But that was hilarious. But, so then she says that, then she gets into the intimacy. She said that, they didn't have an intimate marriage anymore. They were not having sex anymore. And that, just kind of strange timeline. I didn't really understand it, but she said 2 years before she left, they were only having sex like 5 times a year. And so then I was thinking, well, does that mean you haven't had sex in 2 years? And I think Heather asked her that, like, is that what that means? And she was like, well, no, but it had been months and it was so few and infrequent. And she says, even when we did have sex, there was no intimacy for years. And I think 4 years probably means like 20 years.
Yes. Well, and maybe even before Robin came in.
Yeah.
I think that he really, like, it was almost a chore for him and that he would just do it and be like, okay, I got to do it a certain number of times with her. But I'm sure he was not loving or caring or anything. He wouldn't make out with her. He wouldn't even make out with her on their anniversary. I mean, he won't even kiss her.
Yeah, there was no post-sex snuggling or anything. It was just like,
no. Oh, God,
just, no. Okay, lie down, I mean, I feel like it was just so awful. But see, Christine doesn't know any better. The poor woman. She's never had sex with anyone else or kissed anyone else. I mean, my God. Do you think she started watching porn or like how did she know that? How did she know that this is not how it's really supposed to be?
Well, I know porn isn't how it's supposed to be how it is. But
I mean, but that it should be better than,
than Cody rolling on top of you. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was very surprised. Like I said, they have always been very mum about sex, which I understand. I get why they don't. But this I thought was very interesting because that's what I always wondered. I always wondered, did they have sex at all? And she basically said, yeah, they did, but it was very, just performative, like something he had to do to check that off my list of things to do. And can you imagine that with his ADD, how chaotic he is all the time? Like, oh God, like to get him to like mellow out for a moment.
That's gross. So, it's gross to even think about.
Yeah. So anyway, but I thought that was, and you know what? It got picked up by Page 6. Page 6 picked it up, which again, Page 6 is essentially what I've realized is Page 6. Basically, those people just go through people's Instagrams and they go through podcasts and they don't do any journalism. They just report what happens on those things. So, but it got picked up. And so that was, I was like, oh, Heather's getting the scoop, the juicy scoop.
Yes, that's why it's Juicy Scoop. But so Christine says, at some point she just was like, fuck this. She kicked him out of her bed and boxed up his stuff. And that was the beginning of the end. We remember that.
Yes. And she said that was a great day. And that was a great day.
Yes, it was. It was a historical day in Sister Wives history.
Yes.
And then I think Heather asked, like, well, why wouldn't Robin be thrilled, that this was happening? And Christine says, and I think this is really this is the crux of it. She said, well, she had what did I write here? She hadn't shared Cody in a long time. I don't know what that means, but I think the more important thing is that Christine says it was her image and that she could not be perceived as selfish in any way. And I started thinking about that, and it's like, that's really the key to all this stuff when we're always asking about, God, why is Robin like this? Why is she saying this? Why is she doing this? I think this is a person who has this intense need, and maybe you can, sort of like diagnose this a little bit, but she has this intense need to be seen as almost perfect, you know, like, you know, she does not like people talking bad about her. She wants to be seen as being, you know, super magnanimous and selfless and, you know, perfect and wonderful and great. And now that's why she's like always crying and stuff, because now everyone's just like, we don't believe any of your shit. We don't believe anything you've said. We don't think you're a good person, you know, and I think it's just, she's crumbling.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that Heather stayed on this, because this was a lot of what a lot of us have been so confused by, which is, okay, Robin, you know, yes, all these marriages have ended, but why can't you just be okay now with the fact that this is what your life is going to look like, or accept this, or, you know, and the big one, I think, was, and Heather alluded to this too, which is, you know, the Mary situation. Like, you're not inviting Mary over for coffee. You're not inviting, you know, you and Mary aren't hanging out every Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever. You're not doing anything with her, but why are you wanting her to hang on so long? And, you know, I mean, there's a big connection between people who people please and perfectionists, right? Perfectionists, they want everything. It's based in anxiety, right? Because life is messy and anxiety provoking. And, you know, I say this all the time, which is like, there's shades of gray and not everything's, you know, it's kind of in between things, and some things aren't perfect. And I think it's a combination of who Robin is as a person, but I also think it's this upbringing. And I think that Robin very much decided somewhere along the way of, okay, my purpose in life is to be a really good plural wife and mother, and these are the things that I need to do to be that. And perfectionists have a hard time when there's all this messiness, and that's how they deal with their anxiety, right? They feel all this anxiety. So they're like, if I make everything perfect, if I make myself perfect and everyone around me perfect, if everything is perfect, then I can feel safe and I can feel some level of control. So what I think is really interesting about this is, you notice many times when things aren't going the way she wants them to go, suddenly things are unsafe. Like, for example, the text chain is a great example of that. Like, well, this isn't safe for me anymore. It's like, yeah, because it's getting messy. It's getting complicated. It's getting a little bit of that. And people pleasers tend to think that they are doing the best thing that they can do for people. And it's like, no, people pleasers are not helping anybody. People pleasers are, you know, when you people please, you are basically telling people you can walk all over me, number one, and I'm going to be okay with it. But it's people pleasers tend to eventually, because people hit their breaking point, they become, you know, resentful and angry and frustrated. And so you can see with Robin this like cycle of like, but I'm being perfect, but see, I'm being perfect. And then she's realizing more and more and more, like, oh, I can't control all of this. You know, I can't control this. So anyway, that's that whole perfectionism is it's something that a lot of people go to as a way of managing their anxiety, because it is the socially acceptable way to be. So for example, for someone like Robin to be perfect and to be this selfless plural wife will always get her brownie points in that world. But it doesn't translate to the rest of us. You know what I mean? That's why we don't get it.
Yeah. And I also think that there's something in her history. She seems obsessed with being like this perfect plural wife, because going back to her mother, I'm not totally sure on the details of this, but, you know, she always claims that she came from a plural family, but not exactly. It was kind of more like her father had like a second family, you know, so her father, I believe, I could be totally wrong on this. Somebody explain this to me, but I believe
but I think she's part of the second family, right?
She's part of the second family. Her father had a first family, and then he had like a second family, and that was her mom and her siblings. And I don't think the two knew about each other until later, Because I remember on a show, she talked about how one time she was at a park and her father showed up there and with his other family and he couldn't even acknowledge her. And she tried to make it sound like this was some sort of a polygamy thing. And it was like, no, it's because he has a second family and he's ignoring you and pretending you don't exist. And so I think she has this shame about that situation, because then her mom just went and married, her stepfather, who, they ended up, being married, I think, until he passed away. So I think she has this shame about that. And she tries to call it a plural family to explain it. Then she married a man who was from, a very prominent, polygamous family, but yet he didn't want to take any more wives. So he really wasn't. So it's like she's obsessed with it. And then when she found Cody, she was like, okay, here's my chance. Here's my chance to be a plural wife. And then she was always lecturing everybody about what plural families do, what plural wives do. And it's kind of this fantasy she's concocted in her head. And she's so wedded to it. And so, this kind of shit that's happening now and all this is really destroying her world. This world she's constructed in her mind. And anyway, So Christine basically says, I'm glad I don't have to live in her head because and I think that's what and I think this is what she's referring to, is that Robin has a lot of issues and a lot of hangups about this.
Well, and also don't forget, if everything that we hear is true, that Robin has a shopping addiction, that's something else. That's her, right? That's part of the perfectionism. It's part of what, being a wife. And I think that she feels things. And I think when she feels things that she doesn't want to feel, I think she shops.
Yeah. Instead
much
of drinking or
it's not
whatever. Yeah.
Yes. If she wasn't part of this plural marriage in a different religion, or different situation, she would maybe be a drinker. And I mean, or using something or whatever it is. An addiction is an addiction.
Yeah, it's all the same.
And it's all the same, and the roots of it are the same. There's just more. There are some addictions that are socially acceptable, and there's other addictions that aren't. And some that will destroy your life, and some that just create havoc but don't destroy it. But she is obviously a shopping addict and a little bit of a hoarder, apparently. I mean, and hoarding's anxiety. That is anxiety.
Interesting.
So
then they talk about how when Robin was saying on the very last episode of the Tell All that she wants all the wives to verbally give her permission, to just be with Cody. And Christine just laughs and she's like, it's not going to happen. She's like, what am I going to do? Say to her, oh, Your Majesty, you can have him now, and she's just laughing, it's just, Christine is just so over this. And then Heather brought up the thing about the sacred covenant about, let me know when you stop loving me. And Christine was like, yeah, I think that's really weird. And they both talked about how, entering a marriage or a covenant, whatever, feeling that insecure is not normal. Like Heather said, when I got married, I didn't think that, let me know when you stop loving me. It's like, you're going into it thinking I'm going into this marriage. I want to be married forever. And, sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I mean, if you go into a marriage like that and then when Christine said when they were in Las Vegas, one day, Cody just told her, I want you to know that if you ever want to leave, it's fine and it will be peaceful. And so then she said she knew that he already had one foot out the door and that he was not into it and that, he was never going to leave her because he didn't want to be the bad guy. As we saw that play out, with Mary, he refused, even though he did not want to be married to her, clearly he would not be the bad guy, quote unquote, and someone else has to end the relationship with Cody. He's not going to do it. And
and Christine the other thing, I don't know, sorry. One of the things that she talked about was the fact that Cody and Robin had a lot of agreements. A lot of agreements between the two of them. Like, if you do this for me, I'll do that for you. And again, I think that a lot of this stuff is rooted in she's trying to control. She wants to control. Like, okay, I can ensure these things from you if you can give me, if I give you these things. And I think that that's one thing, right? With plural marriage, the whole idea of it, this goes back to the couples versus family aspect of it. From my understanding, right, the idea of plural marriage and how you're supposed to think about it is we are a family and we are one, and that we are all in this together collectively. And I think that that's, someone with Robin's personality is never going to be able to do that, could never do it, because that's just too loosey-goosey.
Right.
For her.
Yeah, no, she has to have her she has to have her defined boundaries and her, her agreements.
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes, exactly.
Then she says, let's see, so Christine basically said that, kind of like what you said in the end, Robin didn't really know how unhappy the other wives were. And she just really didn't have what it takes to hold it all together. And she said that Christine said that she went through that same kind of thing, like, 5 years ago before she left, she was grasping at straws, trying to hold it all together. And she realized that I can't, like, this, it's over. I can't do this. It's never going to happen. And, she had to go through the whole grieving process of, that. And it kind of made me wonder, well, is that where Robin might be going? Like, do you think that Robin realizes that, her dream is never going to happen? Do you think you think that they will last?
That's the thing. They don't really, even though they've been together since COVID, together one-on-one and pretty much monogamous for a while now, they don't really know what it's like to be just the two of them. Like once you, all these other women, and that's one of the things that Christine said, that Robin likes the drama, right? That she has this personality, that she likes the drama, and that she likes the moving pieces and lots of people and, going to Mary and talking to Mary about things and going over here. And so, yeah, if you don't have these other people to blame your problems on, who are you then, where do those problems go? And, what happens then? So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised one way or the other. I think that if Robin, God, if you're out there listening, go to therapy. You really could. You really need some intense therapy, because
and not
it would
with
be
Nancy.
Really good for her.
Yeah.
No, but find the right person for you. But it's just I don't know. I really, it's like, I wish I had the answer. I have no idea one way or the other, but it is obvious that they have a connection, and that they really like each other, and there's a there, that they feel that, and that love for it. And to me, I feel like for Robin, especially at where she is in her life, I don't see her leaving it. I really don't, ever, because I just don't see her leaving it. It would have to be, I think Cody it would have to be pretty egregious for her to leave.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have no idea. Because she's so adamant about how she wanted to live plural marriage, and that was the life she wanted. And if she doesn't have it, then and I really do believe that. Like, a lot of people talk about how she's this master manipulator who was just trying to get rid of all the wives, but I don't think so. I think because of the way Cody met her needs. Never mind the fact that he wasn't meeting the other wives' needs. That was not her problem, or apparently she wasn't concerned about that. He was meeting her needs. He was giving her a lot of time and attention. And, she liked this whole idea of being in a plural family, and she liked getting involved in other people's drama, and how she likes to get involved in other people's conversations and relationships. She really thrived on all of that. And she clearly had no idea what the other women were going through. And now it's just all imploded. And I don't know, I forget where I was going.
And that's the thing. Everyone's so mad. Well, that's the thing. Everyone's so mad at Robin. And I've said this many times. Like, I don't particularly like Robin, but I don't think she is this master manipulator. I don't think she's, I just don't think she's diabolical on those levels. I think that most likely this is all on Cody. I'm sorry. But if he's at her house all day, what can she say? I mean, whether or not she said to him, listen, Cody, it's 2:00 on a Saturday. It's Christine's day. Why don't you go? Or if, I don't know, we don't know. I mean, that's the question. If whether or not she told him, listen, you should go or you should stay, it was on Cody to set that boundary. It was on Cody to do it. And so that's why I'm like, it's not, Robin, he fell in love with her and he really, really liked her. And you're right. And he met her needs and he met them over and over again. So it was working for her. I think she may have probably thought like, this probably isn't great for these other women over here, but I think she felt powerless to do anything about it. Because listen, for the last umpteen years, how often she claims she speaks Cody, but she doesn't have a lot of power over him in that sense. No. Because if she was so powerful, he would still be with Mary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So
no, I don't know. And one thing that Christine said towards the end here is that, and I've heard her say this on other interviews and stuff, she says that, I don't know, Christine, again, I like her, but she can be so naive sometimes. She says, I wish Cody would have just said to them, the other wives, I've met the love of my life. And, I just want to be with her. And it's like, well, that's easy for you to say now that you're out of the marriage and you're married to somebody else, but that would not have gone over well. If Cody had said that, 5, 10, 15 years ago, oh, I've met the love of my life, please understand. No, so it kind of bothers me when she says these, kind of fantastical things. And that's just a little bit of her magical thinking. But,
And also, if he had 10 years ago said, I met the love of my life, it's Robin, our entire livelihoods are gone. Mm-hmm. It's gone. Right? Because that's been, everything was tied. They had to stay in this plural arrangement. Yeah. And I think that maybe this is all the anger that Cody feels, like just so angry that he hasn't been able to, like, on one hand, he's getting, fame and money and all these things that he wants. But it's the price that you have to pay is you have to be in these marriages you don't want to be in and fake it all the time. Yeah. That's the sense that I get. And maybe the anger just built up and built up and built up and built up. But again, if there were no children involved in all of this, I could really sit here and empathize with Cody and say, yeah, it was hard. You got wrapped up in it. You didn't feel like you could leave everyone's livelihoods. But it's the fact that you just dumped everybody else or picked and chose which children you were going to pay attention to. That it's that stuff that just is so disgusting. It's like, these are all your children. Like,
no, it's true and Christine, if he had said that, you wouldn't be having your wedding special because the show would have been over.
It's true.
A long time ago. And so at the end, again, this is sort of another example of her naivete. Heather basically breaks it down for her. And Heather, I think she did a really good job with this interview because she really kind of let Christine talk. Because Heather can be very engaging in her interviews. And she was very kind of like sat back and was kind of quiet and knew like when to ask a question or when to push and when to not. And she really just let Christine do the talking. And that's why I thought it was a really good interview because Christine obviously felt very comfortable with her. and supported by her because she wasn't pushing her. And but towards the end, Heather explains to her, she breaks this down. She's like, well, a lot of men don't have the balls to break up. And so, they basically don't leave unless they have someone else to go to. And and Christine's like, yeah, I never knew that. She's like, Cody, and now I know Cody was never going to leave me. And she's like, I didn't know that was a thing. And Heather's like, yeah, men do that. It's just like, she's like, women, when they're done, they're done. They get out. They don't have to have some place to go. Men have to have a place to go. And they're not just going to break up with you.
Well, and that's what goes back to, if anyone's ever seen, there's study has been done on this and research has been done on this where, women, especially older in life, like women who are on their own later in life, they are happier. They tend to be happier than women who are in marriages later in life. And that men who are not in marriages are very unhappy. So it's like, and it's true because it does work in the man's favor in many ways, right? I mean, so much does. But that's the thing. Women don't really need men as much as men need women.
They do. Men deteriorate.
For companionship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like men, when their wives
for
die,
companionship and relationships,
they die very quickly after. Yeah. They really deteriorate. And,
Well, and also really quick. So I see this a lot with my clients, which is, I have I'm always so fascinated by the fact that I have a lot of male clients and, women tend to go to therapy more than men. But what's interesting is my female clients, when they talk to me, they've talked to their friends about stuff. They've talked to this person, they're talking to that person. And I'm just, I'm someone else they're talking to. They may take my opinion a little bit higher. Or they might get into things with me that they might not get in with their friends. But women have had all these places to talk to. And I actually had this with my husband the other day because I was like, why are you telling me this? Like, you should not be telling me this. Like, this is information that needs to go to a friend. He's like, and my husband's like, I don't have anyone to talk to. I said, you cannot talk to any of your male friends at all. He's like, no. I said, and that's the thing, that men don't have a lot of places to talk about how they're feeling versus women. So I think a lot of women later in life are kind of like, well, I have this rich life. I don't have to cater to anybody. And I have all these friends and all of these, my emotional needs met. I think that men, when they lose their wives, like all of that connection and all of that stuff is gone and they can't turn to their male friends. And say, I'm feeling lonely and down. Like I asked my husband, I said, you go to band practice. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, nothing. We talk about nothing during, band practice. Like I can't say anything to these guys. So I think that's really, really, it's such a fascinating thing, I think. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that's interesting with, maybe because, now Cody's, I don't think this is the place to go. But he's going to the manosphere. He's talking with these other men in the manosphere and talking with Nathan and, what's his face? Who's the guy, his friend?
Oh, sweetheart Judith. Brian.
Yeah, Brian. Yeah. I mean, he's able to have these vulnerable conversations with them. Although I don't know if it's the best source of advice, but and
they're not vulnerable conversations. Just FYI, they're not vulnerable.
No.
But yeah,
it's bagging on women conversations, basically.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. It's not the best, but
yeah. Who can I blame for all my problems? Women. Great. Let's all get together and talk about it. But yeah, it's true though. Men just don't have that, or they go to their female friends. But again, depending on, who you are and how many female friends you have and all of those things. So anyway, yeah, Christine is God love her because she said something else. Yeah. She said something else, which was, she talked about how her mom left, the church and, she did not feel like it was a good place for women. And she gets into this whole thing about how her mother was unhappy and all this stuff. And then in the same breath, Christine's like, but gosh, I had the best childhood. It was just wonderful. It was just great, and it was like, okay, it's back to what we talked about when she went to visit her brother of like, where were you like mentally, because, and that's the thing about Christine is that, is she just someone who's always able to just figure out how to make the best of it? Or does she have blinders on? Maybe it's a little bit of both. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's not forget, Christine was brainwashed in this cult for like, 40, how long has she been out of it? Like really a couple of years. I mean, for almost 50 years. So it takes some time, it's a process.
Mm-hmm.
And if you talk to Christine 5 years from now, she probably, hopefully, will have had the time to reflect on this and say, yeah, my childhood maybe wasn't that great. She's just now processing all of this. And it's so, yeah, I mean, it's a deeply ingrained, there's a lot there. Christine is not finished in her healing process, I don't think. And also,
she is still on her healing journey.
Yeah. And the trauma of, I think, being in that family. And again, because they always talk about, oh, it was so great raising the kids and this and that. Well, I don't know. From a lot of the stories I've heard, it doesn't sound that great. You have a husband who you don't even know what he does all day. You barely see him.
Mm-hmm.
He's barely participating in your lives. You guys lived in poverty for, most of your lives. It was very difficult. You were a basement wife. It had to take care of all these kids all day, plus work. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I think it's just going to take some time for her to wake up, come to terms with all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we love you, Christine.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And that's pretty much it, right? That's the whole
Yeah,
interview?
that's all I have.
Did we miss anything? I
don't think so. But yeah, they, like I said, I think Heather did a great job. And at the end, she left this part in where, they finish recording and they talk about, Christine says, well, thank you for being respectful. And this was really great. And then Heather says, we're coming to Utah to go to the University of Utah where my son's been accepted. Would you like to get together for dinner? So, maybe there'll be more information to come for the double date with Heather and Peter and Christine and David. Wouldn't that be great if Heather became friends with her?
Oh, yes, it would be great because then I'm part of her Patreon. Then she would give us all the scoop on Patreon because you get some good scoop on that. Yeah, it's been interesting. Like, I don't know what's going on with Heather where either she's leaving a lot of things in that that normally people would edit out. Like, sometimes she'll go, oh, wait, let me try that again. And then you're like, oh, okay. Oh, hi, it's Juicy Scoop or a welcome to Patreon. And I don't know if she's doing that on purpose or if it's just oversight, but it's been happening a lot. So when I heard that, I was like, someone's not paying attention. But I don't know. I don't know if she's leaving these things in on purpose or not, but it's very, it's kind of cool in some ways. You get to some behind the scenes, but in other ways, you're kind of like, okay, Heather, you have a huge show here. You can't, like, no one caught that you started over again.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with Christine, she left in on purpose just to kind of humanize the interview and maybe as a little bit of a flex to show that, that Christine felt that she was respectful to her, that she respected her, her boundaries and whatever. Heather did say on her Patreon, I was just listening to it earlier, that there was a TLC representative on the call, on the call. And so I think she just kind of wanted to say, I'm not, because Heather lately has gotten, she's had this public feud with Jeff Lewis and that whole thing. And I think she just feels sensitive, like, people think she's a bad person. And so I think she just wanted to see like, hey, I'm not that bad, But I mean, That's fine. We know, Heather. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
we're not going to be listening to you if we think that. But yeah, I have noticed that there have been some weird things like in the middle of an episode or beginning where it's not edited out. And I don't know what's happening. It seems to me like she has her son editing the show. Her
Yeah.
21-year-old
And that's what I think's
son.
happening. Yeah.
Who maybe is like,
And it's a little
slacking
odd.
Yeah, because it
Or
seems
not paying
like,
attention or whatever it is. Yeah.
yeah, it seems like he's there because I was listening to an episode the other day where she's talking and he's obviously there in the room with her. And she's like, oh, Drake, will you look this up? Google this. And it's like, what, is he producing the show now? Like, and I so I don't know. I think they're trying to make it like a family business. And, I don't know. Maybe Drake's kind of slacking a little. I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah.
I love Heather.
Yeah.
Listen.
I love
regardless.
Juicy Scoop. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoy the show and all the comedians that she has on and all of that. Yeah. And so anywho, I mean, this episode, which was going to be like a just short little
I know. I'm like, 30 minutes.
Yeah. I know. But let's talk about the show.
Yeah, I thought it would be a little 30-minute thing, but no. It's too much to say.
Of course not. All right. Well, so on Thursday's show, we have a very special episode. We did a crossover episode with the podcast From the Friar, and they also cover Sister Wives, and they also cover Married at First Sight. And so we're super excited. We talk all about Sister Wives and, you know, our thoughts and feelings about it and all that good stuff. So that'll come out on Thursday. And as we mentioned in the beginning, we are going to watch all of these extras that TLC is putting out for Sister Wives. And, you know, it sounds like they're pretty juicy. So if they are good, we are definitely going to cover them. So it might just be a lot of Sister Wives between now and the next, you know, couple weeks
in the
or
end of the
something.
year. Yeah.
Yes. And yeah. And if you have not, if you don't subscribe already, please subscribe to this podcast. We really appreciate reviews. It does help us tremendously when people review the show. So please give us a 5-star review. You can follow us on Instagram or TikTok at Psych Legal Pop. And yeah, I mean, wishing you all a very happy holiday season and a, you know, happy new year and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
2024.
Yes. I hope everyone's enjoying. Yeah. I'm ready for 2023 to be over. I really
get
am.
ready.
I don't know about you.
But you know, I feel like we say the same thing every year. Every year we're like, oh,
I do.
God, what a year. Can't wait for 2023 to be over. And we have such expectations for 2024. And you know, it's just the same shit all over again.
I know, but at least I'm like Christine. I like to see I like the sort of out with the old and with the new kind of thing. Like I like the beginnings of a new year. And so yeah, I mean, I'm ready. This year went by really, really fast. I felt like it did. And then December feels like the longest month known to man. But I just am ready for just something new. You know, just a fresh something. So
all right,
it'll be good.
We'll manifest it. Let's manifest it.
Yes, I'm manifesting it. All right. Well, I think that's it. We will see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love, with no artificial sweeteners, only 30 calories, just 5 grams of sugar, and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. That great Pepsi taste with even more to love. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.